Hey, sunshines. It's a little gloomy out today around here, but we still sunshines around here. I hope you guys are having a good Sunday so far. So I wanted to get on here and give this quick message. God was just talking to me. He had me in the book of Esther the other day, and he really highlighted to me the story about Haman and Mordecai. And I recommend going to go read it. But, in that situation, Haman, moved out of selfishness. It was more so selfishness. He didn't have control over how, the king saw Mordecai. Mordecai ended up having favor in the king's eyes, and ended up having favor over his life. He was a Jew. So I remember it was like Haman wanted control over the situation. Haman wanted control because I remember he was mad that Mordecai didn't bow down to him. Mordecai didn't, bow down to his plans or bow down to him, period. He just didn't bow down. And that frustrated Haman, to where Haman ended up paying people and plotting against Mordecai. And he ended up doing that and paying people off to do different things to set, traps for Mordecai. And Esther eventually ended up, fasting and helping her people get through, because they ended up, God ended up exposing the plans that Haman had for Mordecai. So, he also is so crazy because even his family ended up warning him, like, well, if Mordecai is a Jew, I wouldn't go against him. So he even received warnings about, the plots that he had against Mordecai. They told him, like, no, you will be the one to fall in that, fall in that pit if you do the same thing, or if you try to set up him. So, when you move out of selfishness, sometimes you can feel like you're doing the right thing. Sometimes you can feel like you are moving the right way, but it's for selfish reasons. Sometimes, a person that is selfish, they will choose to do anything to, get ahead, or, choose anything to move a certain type of way, which can ultimately, make their outcome different. So when a person chooses selfishness, they will, if they see an opportunity that comes up that's not the best opportunity, but they will still go and take it because they feel like they will get something out of it. That's selfishness, Instead of working, in different ways and following God, they will do things just out of their own, flesh and things of that nature. So, you have to be careful of people that have selfish mindsets, or they want to control the narrative or something like that, because they will do anything to control that narrative. They will do anything to control certain outcomes, and how God works is, we know he's very intentional. So God, when he has hold of your life, he is going to order your steps. He is going to tell you how to move, and especially so that you can be, protected. Because sometimes we feel like, well, why can't I have these people around me or this, but it's for protection, because God knows everything. He sees all, he sees everything. So it's like, nothing is hidden from him. So when you follow his plans and his purpose, he makes things straight. He keeps you protected. He keeps you guided in the right direction. But that was what happened in that scenario. Haman was selfish. But ultimately what happened, Mordecai ended up getting honored by the king because Mordecai did something and saved his life, saved the king's life. He knew the plots and plans that some of his people was trying to plan on him, and he ultimately saved him. So Mordecai ended up being exalted. But, when you move out of selfish regions, or when you move out of things like that, it can be harmful. It can be, harmful to you, harmful to others. But God was really highlighting that to me, because obviously Haman, wanted the spotlight, because even when the king, it's crazy, because even when the king was like asking him, like, how would you honor somebody, which he was really talking about Mordecai at that time, but in Haman's mind, he was like, well, who else could the king honor but me? And that was out of selfish reasons. So he started naming off all this stuff and naming all these things, and then ultimately the king was like, okay, well, go do that for Mordecai. So it was like a turn of events. Everything that Haman tried to do, it just was reversed and sent back to Haman, and he ended up falling into that. So it's very important to just, be wise. Be wise. That's why God tells us to be wise as a serpent, but harmless as a dove, because, it's a lot of things that, can be prevented. It's a lot of things that can be, not happen due to us following God's will. So I just wanted to put that message out. He really highlighted that scenario to me, and put it to the forefront when he had me reading Esther the other day. So I hope you guys have a good day, and I will talk to you guys soon. All right, bye.